interested in real estate investing but not quite sure where to get started? Do you want to get the know-hows on creating ongoing passive income using the buy and hold strategy? Hi, I'm Janice Bowles, licensed realtor and co-founder of B Premier Ventures, a real estate development and consulting firm where we buy and beautify distressed real estate, renovate it, and resell for profit. With over 15 years of investing experience, B Premier has extensive knowledge in rural land development, flips, and rental acquisitions. B Premier's current portfolio consists of properties within Florida and Virginia. Services includes investor project consulting, project management, and group coaching. For more information, visit our website at bpremierventures.com and schedule a complimentary discovery session or subscribe to our email list. It's free. Follow me on Instagram at Janice Bowles for additional real estate investing tips. B Premier Ventures, we buy and beautify.
Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode of Let's Do It Talk Show. So you all know I have not been in the studio for a couple of weeks. They have cleaned and they have scrubbed and they have done some things. So I'm here today, but doesn't mean I'm going to be here next week. So what we did was we created something a little teeny bit special for you today. But let me go ahead and start off as you know I do. It's me, your girl, Ladrine Howard Peterson, the CEO and founder of Do It, delivering on ideas and thoughts. And what I do in a nutshell is I help to turn dreamers into doers. And I do it from two avenues. I do it from the avenue of human resources. That's what we're going to talk about today. But resume writing and interview preparation, you have issues on your job, I'm your girl, and so are my other two friends that are joining me today. If you are starting a business and you don't know quite where to start and you don't know how to bring your ideas into fruition, guess what? I am your girl. Here at the Let's Do It Talk Show is primarily for entrepreneurs. However, we think and we feel that it's important that we address all aspects of it. So we talk about faith, we talk about finances, we talk about the future, and we talk about family and friends, family and relationships. So today's show is all about HR. Anybody who knows me know that I breathe, I sleep, and I eat HR. HR is my thing. I have been tagged and deemed as the HR guru. And today, I have some of my friends who are going to play in the sandbox with me, and we just so happen to be inviting you to it as well. So, you know how I do. I start off with my weekend, right? We've been in cold. Got to go outside, ate some ice cream, and enjoyed my grandkids. So they came over. We had a ball watching movies. They eat all the time. I put a post every time they walk past the refrigerator, they eat. But I'm training them up on Pac-Man. Those who don't know, I am a Pac-Man Pro, Miss Pac-Man Pro. So I'm training them, and they're actually getting better. And that's the communion for my church. They allow people to pick them up. Yesterday, phenomenal Tamika event, and then the mastermind that's coming up tomorrow. So just pretty much sharing with you all everything. And I made this video, catch me as you can, if you can. So check that out, man. Everything is still going on and popping, although I am isolated and so are the other people. So make sure you also tune in tomorrow for the event, and I'll talk about that a little bit. So yes, do it, and I am still doing it. So today, as I mentioned, we're talking about all things HR. It's all about HR. I thought now would be a very good time to kind of like tip into the minds of some people. Like right now, we know that unemployment is at its all-time low. We know that people are getting laid off. People have been laid off or either requested to cut back on their hours. So we don't know how long this pandemic is going to be going on. So one of the things that I wanted to do was share my gift. From an HR world. That's what I do all day long. I do it on my job with the Food and Drug Administration for 8, 9 hours, and then I do it in my personal business. So I thought, why not bring it into on the show with some of my other friends? So we're going to have a good time, and we're going to talk about that. So what I'll do now is I'll do introductions, and they are joining me via Skype. So new technology, some of the things. So just look out for what's going to be happening right here at Let's Do It. So first up, I have Jennifer Jones Bryan. And Jennifer, if you could please receiving real-time feedback that they cannot hear you on Facebook, but it's on our side. It's not from your side, so hold on just one moment. And so while they're talking, if you all can put your questions in the feed, we will be answering questions at the end of the show. We have our bits and pieces and our overviews to talk about, but make sure that you put your questions in the feed. And now we're going to go back to Jennifer. Jennifer's going to give you an overview of herself. Jennifer.
Okay, can they hear me now?
Can y'all hear her now? Yes, go ahead, Jennifer.
Okay, cool. Well, this is Jennifer Jones Bryan. I come to you today to talk about HR. I come with the background of nearly 31 years of federal service, and I also work in the corporate arena at Capital One as a director of associate experience, where I deal with associate engagement matters and initiatives. And then I own my own business. It's called Reaching Within, an Empowerment Journey. And it's about elevating those who are mid-career to go to senior career. And my services include interview preparations, other professional development things such as goal setting, as well as resume review, and dealing with those personal hindrances and obstacles that may be stopping you from moving to that next level into your professional development success journey.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So
you're welcome.
Next up, we have Dr. Karen. So, Dr. Karen, if you can give an overview of yourself, and also let everybody know how many years you have. I know, Jennifer, you said 31 years in HR. So if you can start off with the number of years that you have in HR and then go into your spiel.
Okay, wonderful. Hi, I'm Dr. Karen Hills Pruden. I have been working in human resources about 25 years. I'm actually an ex-manager who transitioned over to human resources about 25 years ago. My 25 years of HR experience comes from working in the service and the product-based industry. I've worked for a couple of Fortune 500 companies, as well as I've worked in nonprofit and museums and education. I also have my own business, which is Pruden Global Business Solutions, where I am assisting individuals, female middle managers seeking senior leadership positions. And part of my services is I help them navigate through how to transition from being a manager to a leader, because there is a big difference in terms of how you conduct yourself and how you view things in the workplace. We also talk about some career counseling, some interviewing prep, how to negotiate your salary, and then we also talk about overcoming barriers such as the fear of relocation and different things like that. So my specialty for my business is particularly female middle managers seeking senior leadership positions. I'm known by two various names. People call me the entrepreneur for female corporate entrepreneurs, and I'm also known as the career elevation expert. I have 5 books published, 4 anthologies, 2 individuals, and I have a new book coming out in June called The Prudent Principles, 10 Strategies to Propel Women to the C-Suite.
Awesome. And how many years did you say again?
25 in HR.
25 in HR. So just a little bit about me for those who don't know about my HR background. So this year marks my 28th year in HR. And all of my years have been in the federal government. So I started off as an assistant, and then I moved up and climbed the ladder all throughout. And now as a supervisor, you all know my story, most of you all, but I always share my story about how I started off reading policies and taking manuals on the train, on the subway, and then how that equipped me to learn, and now I write policies. And not only that, my greatest and latest project is actually developing a system that is so innovative like none other for HR. So I love HR. I have done HR not only in the U.S. but around the globe. So China, India, South Africa, Costa Rica, all of the likeness, wherever FDA has a home, I am a part of that. I was one of the pioneers that helped FDA to plant feet on the ground. So that has been a phenomenal event. But as you go along, I'm trying to tell you all, put your questions in the feed. We will be answering them at the end of the show. And you all know we normally charge for things like this. So please take advantage of this and drop your questions in the feed. We will get to those a little bit later on. So what we're going to focus on today are 3 different areas. We're going to be talking about some keys and some tips for a resume. We're also going to be talking about keys and tips for interviewing. And then we're going to talk about how to ignite your fire, ignite your power to reach within yourself. So those are the 3 topics that we're going to go through. While I purposely made it where each one of us had a niche in this area, but all of us have experiences, so we're going to dialogue and we're going to go through. So the way that it's going to happen is each person is going to give a quick overview, and then we're going to jump into an entire conversation. So I hope y'all ready, because we're ready. So I'll start it off with resume. So everybody knows that I'm very particular about resumes and how I go about doing my resume, and how to make your resume stand out using the do it strategy. So there's 4 tips that I give on being direct, making sure you have a clear objective, making sure your resume shows impact, and making sure that you stand out. So you need to have a tremendous resume. So let's start with the D first. Let's start with being direct. One of the things that I always explain to people, when you're doing a resume and you're completing a resume, first of all, your resume speaks for you when you're not in that place. So the same way that you want someone to see you physically, that's how you need to have your paper written down. It needs to be well groomed, and it needs to be well put together. So the way that I go about doing it is, especially for the federal government, right? Everybody talk about how complex it is for you to get through the process and for you to find out whether you made a cert or whether you were interviewed. So here's the key to this, and I really want y'all to listen up. So for years, I worked on the HR side totally. And all I used to do was rate and rank applications and forward them over to the selecting officials. And back in the day, every secretary that ever worked for the Food and Drug Administration, they had to come through me. We had an open continuous announcement. So here's the thing that I used to do. I used to set aside the vacancy announcements against the application. All you have to do is read the vacancy announcement. It gives you all of the answers. Everything that you see in the vacancy announcement, that's what the manager created for you. So now it is your job to make sure that you start with a great foundational resume, but every time you apply for a job, you need to make sure that you update it and customize it to meet that one if you want that job. So talking about the basics of a resume. So let's talk about the do it strategy. So the D is for direct. No one wants to have to search and find and look for pieces of information. Make sure that your information is in order and make sure that what you see at first is attractive to me. And for the HR standpoint, make sure that you have the information that matches up to what's listed on the vacancy announcement so that I don't have to search. HR has a specialty in HR, in human resources, right? Like whatever area you work in, whether it be budget or whatever, that's your specialty. HR has a specialty in HR. They don't know all the scientific, all the IT technology. They will learn it and get abreast of it and get some information from talking to the managers. So try to make sure that you know that as you're using the language to later impress the manager, that you're also being direct for the HR person as first. So if you see what I have explained, you are creating one resume for two people, for HR and then for the selecting official. You want HR to be clear so that they can understand it, and you want it to be attractive so that the management will pick it out of a whole stack of qualified people. So let me go through these quickly, and then ladies, please let's jump in and have dialogue about it. So O is for objective. Understanding what your objective is with your resume. Some people's resume be all over the place, meaning that you're trying to do one resume because you want to be a project manager, and then you have the same resume where you want to point out your budget skills. It's okay to have more than one resume. In fact, that's what I suggest. Make sure that your resume is focused on the objective. Whatever goal it is, whatever job you're applying for, make it customized. So make sure that your language and whatever is highlighted at the beginning. Because remember, sometimes when a manager gets a resume, they don't have time to look through all of the different stacks. So make sure that what you want that manager to see, what is matching up to what he put in the vacancy announcement, ensure that you make sure that you have that up front, right? So that's the objective part of it. And then, ladies, you all can chime in before I go into the I and the T. Do you have any input that you want to talk about in terms of being directive and making sure that they focus on the objective?
Yeah, I wanted to say something from the federal side. That, okay. In terms of the resume, and when you talked about looking at the vacancy announcement and then working on making sure they focus on keywords on their resume, something that I wanted to add to that was making sure that they're actually showing up with their results. So being more results-oriented and accomplishment-based focus when they're writing their resume. Because I will tell you, I've been on the side of reviewing resumes for hiring, right, purposes inside the organization. And I will tell you, I would pass over those who just list duties as opposed to telling me what you can do for my organization in terms of results. And then the other piece too, I would tell people to make sure that they do not dismiss whatever activities they may be doing from a voluntary perspective and quantify that experience as well if it relates to the job.
Those are great. Those are great. And Jennifer touched upon the I. So the impact in terms of her saying that piece of it, that's the I and the T that I will go through shortly. Dr. Karen?
I'd like to add in regards to direct, coming from a nonprofit and a corporate standpoint, I try to assist individuals with 3 buckets. If you can put your information from your resume in 3 buckets, it will ensure that hopefully it's results oriented, and that is to either make money, save money, or help the organization achieve the goal. So if it does not fit in one of those three buckets, then we need to decide whether or not it needs to be in the resume, because as Jennifer mentioned, it needs to be results oriented and not task based. And if it's results oriented, you should be able to align it up with the organizational goals. And not only that, the wording should be action compelling, as opposed to, instead of saying achieve or coordinated, you can say / payroll costs. So you want to have action verbs associated with that results terms. But my thing is it should fit in 3 buckets, and then you should be able to quantify it. You should be able to add data in terms of numbers, percentage, dollars, or something associated with it. So make sure that you have the quantitative data to add to it when you articulate those terms on your resume.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Jennifer touched upon the I, which is impact. So there is a way that I train folks to do their resume, and one of the things that the common problem is just exactly what Jennifer talked about. So I just want to let y'all in on a secret, just in case y'all don't know. Your PD, we can tell when you have copied and pasted your PD. Like, it reads just like a PD. So a lot of times I'll tell people, oh, your resume reads like a PD, and they'll say, it is my PD. And I'm like, that's not it at all. Your PD is a list of your duties and responsibility. Your resume shows impact. It shows what you have done, who you have done it for, and whatever you're doing, who is it impacting. That's how you get your outcome statement, and that's exactly what Jennifer was talking about. So I want you all to move away from just your PD. Your PD is not going to get you very far in terms of the employment process as you're walking through variations of things. And then the last piece that I had, transparency, and then I also had tantalizing. So that piece for me is when I was explaining for the selecting official, the selecting official can get a number of applications, right? So the HR's responsibility is to make sure that they are basically qualified first round, and then that's when you get your letter. So a lot of people be like, oh, I got my letter, and that's good. You're basically qualified. And then the second round is when you are highly qualified, and that distinguishes who goes to the selecting official. Once it gets to the selecting official, depending on what the natural break is, and I won't go deep into terminology, but the natural break is when you get your scoring, wherever HR sees like a natural gap, that's where they're going to break it, and that's what distinguishes the highly between the regularly minimally qualified. So if it's a lot of people that are at the top and they cannot like really separate it, if it's like 1 or 2 points apart, they pick a point, but it's that whole group is going to go to the selecting official. How do you make your resume stand out? So that's the piece that you have to think about. For me, and I'm just going to be honest, so I have reviewed thousands of resumes in my career. I have interviewed probably like hundreds of people in my career. I have supervised like 200 staff members. All of them I didn't bring on board, but if I can leave you with something very key about the resume, as a selecting official, let me tell you my process. I get all of them. If I had 50 resumes, I'm not reading them from the top to the bottom, and I'm being honest with you. I'm skimming through, and I'm looking for keywords that match up to what I need. But I'm also looking at the format and the crispness of it. So if you utilize your white space, like space your information out, use bullets, make it attractive. Not saying that I picked the pretty ones. It's like I'm playing. I don't pick the pretty ones only, but not just saying that. But it makes it so much easier for me to read as I'm going through the process. It takes away the complexity. When you have a small font and when your information is all crumbled up together, I'm normally going to not catch too much while I'm going through my first view. And then out of my first view, the ones that catch my eye, I put them to the side and move the other ones over. And then that's where I do my thorough research and my thorough going through. So that last piece of it, making sure that it is catching to the eye. Make sure that that happens, because as a selecting official, I'm also looking at your resume and saying, oh, this person took the time out. It doesn't matter if you paid somebody or if you did it on your own. This is what represents you. And this is you before you walk into the door. So make sure that your resume is clear, clean, and concise. And people know when I do resumes, one of the things, even before they start looking and digging in, they notice everything that I do is like cut, cornered. It's represented. It looks very, very nice, and that's because you get them with that, and then the way that I coordinate your information. So, ladies, like, please jump in. Any other tips that you have about resumes?
Yeah, I did want to add that for corporate America, that most 93% of corporate hiring managers use the ATS, the applicant tracking system. And it goes to being exact as what you're saying, because you put in keywords and competencies in the system that you're looking for on the resume. And if those competencies and keywords aren't on the resume, then your percentage won't be as high. And they usually look for you to be between 80 to 100% that falls within the scoring of the ATS. And so keywords and competencies are very important. And titles are very important with the applicant tracking system. This is where you actually can get scored lower because of a particular title. And so I don't want to bleed over into another section, but when you use of the applicant tracking system, when your resume is being scanned by talent acquisition or by a recruiter, this is where titles matter, because it pulls the particular title and the years that you have associated with that title. And sometimes at certain points in people's career, they're more concerned about the money instead of the title. But that doesn't work with the applicant tracking system, because the applicant tracking system look at senior leader positions as director and above. And so you may have had a senior manager position and you may have been making more than a director. But if you don't have that particular title of director on your resume, then it's not going to be pulled by the applicant tracking system. So you do have to be concise. You have to have keywords and you have to have competencies, so that when those employers, those 93% of employers who scan your resume through that ATS software, so that you'll get a score high enough to move you to the next level.
Yeah, and I Ladrine, I just wanted to add to this conversation about the resume really quickly, is that you made an earlier point about how the first point of entry is with you inside of an HR office, an HR professional taking a look at it. It's incredibly important that when a person is writing their resume, that they are also writing it in plain language, right? In terms of, because it could be a job that's so technical that when it gets to you, you may not understand exactly what that means. But to try to keep it, as you said, as concise as possible, using strong action verbs, like the good Dr. Karen said, and, focus on streamlining, reducing, process efficiencies, whatever it may be, but making sure that is tight and right. Now, I don't know if this question is going to come in on your screen, Ladrine, but do you want to share a little bit about how long is a good resume for government, and then how long is a good level for corporate?
Sure. So that's actually like my closeout piece for the resume. So perfect timing in terms of that. So one of the things that I do, and I kind of alluded to a little bit earlier, was a master resume. So my current resume is 14 pages long. However, when I'm submitting something or passing along my resume, I do not submit all 14 pages. And it's still building. As you gain experience, and as you're on projects, make sure that you are updating your resume. A lot of people talk about doing assignments that are above their pay grade. That's how my resume got built. like always doing assignments that were above. So when you go to an expert, if they're an expert in the federal career, they're going to tell you that the length of it can be as long as you want it to be. But the thing to understand is knowing how to customize it. So the way that I describe it in my training courses or my one-on-one sessions is imagine your master resume as a menu, right? When you go to a restaurant, you're not going to order everything off of the menu. So when you're submitting your master resume, that's your template, your starting point of all the various choices that you have. Pick and choose what directly, remember the D, directly relates to that vacancy announcement that you're applying to. Utilize your pages carefully. So it's not a number that goes into it. Now for private sector, of course that's different. Private sector, 2 pages, definitely not more than 3 pages in terms of the information. So when you look at the variation of the things that you can get on 14 pages, or if you're submitting it maybe like 7 pages or so, depending on your experiences, versus 2 to 3 pages, your information is going to look different. Because how do you capture in 2 pages and then how do you capture in, let's say, 6 to 7 pages? It's a difference of information. That's why when you see a private sector vacancy announcement resume, it's very succinct. Because they have to be, you only get 2 pages, so you have to utilize your spaces. But with the federal government, you want to utilize the pages for anything that's on your master resume. You pull it off of the menu that's going to apply and that's going to relate to that given job. Because sometimes you need a tiebreaker and you need various things, but make sure that you highlight those very important things very much up front. So I do what's called a profile summary, which is a snapshot of your overall experiences and your major accomplishments. So I think those are the major points that I wanted to touch upon in terms of resume. And by all means, each of us will check the feed as we're going through, and we will answer the questions at the end of it. But what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break, and then on the other side of it, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about, okay, so now you got a nice resume, you customize it, you got selected and called in for an interview. How do you prepare for an interview? So we'll see you all after the break.
Are you interested in real estate investing but not quite sure where to get started? Do you want to get the know-hows on creating ongoing passive income using the buy and hold strategy? Hi, I'm Janice Bowles, realtor and co-founder of B Premier Ventures, a real estate development and consulting firm where we buy and beautify distressed real estate, renovate it, and sell for profit. With over 15 years of investing experience, B Premier has extensive knowledge in rural land development, fix and flips, and rental acquisitions. B Premier's current portfolio consists of properties in Florida and Virginia. Services includes investor project consulting, project management, and group coaching. For more information, visit our website at premierventures.com and schedule a complimentary discovery session, or subscribe to our email list. It's free. Follow me on Instagram at Janice Bowles for additional real estate investing tips. B Premier Ventures, we buy and beautify.
Thank you, everybody. Welcome back to the second half of Let's Do It Talk Show. So, if you miss any of the first half, make sure that you go back and watch the replay. So I'm here with two of my fellow HR gurus, and we're just talking. So we're just talking and giving you all tips about HR. So earlier we talked about resumes and the importance of making sure that you have a solid resume and provided tips. So what we want to do is we're going to go into prepping for interviews. The interview, like once you get to that point, prepping for an interview is extremely, extremely important. And Dr. Karen, if you want to kick off this topic, by all means, you can kick it off.
Okay. In terms of interview prep, I certainly recommend that you research the company that you're interviewing for. And what you want to research is you want to research newsworthy events, any major changes that the company has had, any changes in leadership, any changes that impact community. You also want to be aware of any comings and goings within the area that you plan to interview for. Like, for instance, if you are interviewing for a job in marketing and you are aware that they just hired a new marketing VP or that the marketing VP just exited, you want to be aware of that so that you can ask questions in regards to that and how it impacts or in relationship to the position that you're interviewing for. Right. Also, you want to, and this is something that people don't think about, is I'm going to need you to Google yourself because they're going to Google you.
Yes.
And you need to know what's out there. So I'm going to need you to do a little social research on yourself and find out what's out there on the web in terms of your name and any derivative, any name that you've used previously, because one of the first things that people do now is Google your name. And so I want you to be able to provide a response to anything that you think warrants a response to as part of your interview prep, because that will be some of the questions that are asked in the interview.
Very, very good. Jennifer, you want to chime in there?
Yeah, absolutely. Those were very good points. And I also wanted to add that not only are you researching yourself via Google, find out from the place that's interviewing you whether or not it's going to be a panel interview, and if possible, if they're willing to share the names. I'm not saying for you to reach out to those people, but you may want to research them on LinkedIn or Google them so that when you walk in the room, try to find something that you remember from each of the panel members so you connect with them. I've been very successful in that vein because in my answers, somehow I weave in something from them, and it makes them feel good that I remembered something. The other piece too, if you walk into a panel, and I faced this in the government, where I knew people on the panel, and I've also been on the other side where I interviewed people who I knew. And here's a pointer. I will say, pretend like you don't know those people. And when you're describing your accomplishments or whatever, and go in as if they didn't know you and really spell out what you did. And then next, I would offer two different approaches. And one, in the federal government, because I'm a certified senior executive, that the method of Concur, make sure that as you are talking through your answers and responses during the interview, that you put it in the context of the background context, challenge, actions, and results. And I know, like in corporate, some use the STAR method, which you talk about the situation, the task, the action, and the results. Mm-hmm. And jot down on a sticky note or something, but have your example ready to go so you won't be using the same example every time, but take your examples through these, models that I just gave so you can be prepared.
Yeah, both of those sets of information were very good. What I will offer is, first of all, as it was said, make sure you not only study the people and Google the people in the company, make sure you read the entire vacancy announcement. I can't stress how much the vacancy announcement is giving you the answer key to all of the things. So basically, the manager has taken their time to give the information to HR. HR cannot add anything in the duties and the responsibilities that the manager hasn't already put in the position description. Nothing can be in the questionnaire, the questions that you answer, that the manager and HR didn't pull from a position description. And then the only piece that HR adds in is from OPM standard qualifications. So they're not making up anything. The only thing that they're actually stressing upon is the specialized experience. So when you go into an interview, the one thing that you want to make sure that you do, you want to highlight your area of expertise, focusing on that specialized experience. The specialized experience is a make or break. They are telling you exactly what they're honing on that someone must have. And when they're looking at that, they need you to have that when you come in the door, not something for you to learn. My second point would be cheat sheets. So when you go into an interview, you may take a different resume than the one that you applied to. You may take additional documentation. You can have a whole portfolio packet. I encourage you to do that. And not only does it allow the managers to see your preparation and know what type of person that you are, but it also gives you the opportunity to have cheat sheets. So for those who know what they do, but when they're in an interview, they freeze up, this is what I tell my clients. You take you a notebook or portfolio or whatever type that you want to take it in, and you have resumes so that you can pass out and give to them even though they already have them. If you want to make adjustments to them, now is the time to do so. But along with that, on your resume, you highlight key information, and you can even have a sheet behind it where it has like several of your major accomplishments. Because when they're asking you stuff, you know what you did, but half of the time people freeze up and can't think of an example. This happens a lot when I'm doing preparation. So I actually interview my clients face to face, and I take the resume as if I am the person that's going to interview them. I basically can tell them what's going to be asked based on what's on the vacancy announcement, and we actually role play. So sometimes the clients get stuck in terms of providing the examples. So I have created this way, and I coach them through preparing a sheet of examples so that when it goes down, as you're talking, you'll have your information, and the glance down with some highlighted words will bring it back, and it'll bring you back from your nervousness. I also tell people, if you are the type who your mouth gets dry, it's okay for you to take a mint if you can control it. So make sure you're not all, make sure you're not doing that. And some water. And you can say, excuse me, I have a dry throat, or I'm getting a cold. Whatever it is that's going on with you, you can express that so that the water and the mint will be acceptable. But please make sure and practice with the mint to make sure that it's controllable, because you don't want the mint to take over. That's meant for you to, that was not pun intended, but that was cute. You don't want the mint that's meant that was there for you to help you calm down and to help you with your dry mouth to overly take over and become an attractiveness to them that throws everybody off. And also, make sure that you have a question. Come up with several questions and try to make them engaging. But if not, you have other questions that are standard and that can be asked unless somebody already answers them. How did the position become vacated? Is it a new position? A good one is, if you could describe the first week in this job, what would it be? So if it's a thorough interviewer and they have really left it where you don't truly have any technical questions, make sure you have some other questions that are set aside. And practice. The last piece that I'll leave you with for this is, now we're in a space not only because of the pandemic, but virtual interviews. Virtual interviews are hot right now. I have conducted maybe 8 interviews over the past week and a half, all virtually. Some will ask to bring cameras on, but a lot of them have been just purely through the telephone. And when you are, believe it or not, when you are in an interview or when you are speaking, folks can normally tell what's going on with you on the other side. So when you are preparing for an interview and you're doing it by phone, make sure you're not like so relaxed that you're like leaning it comes out and it's portrayed in your voice. Make sure that you're sitting up as straight as you can and make sure that you're prepared. You're able to have all of your documentation there, and do not read from your resume. I have your resume. You have your resume. I don't need you to read from your resume. I want you to express and convey so you can look at your buzzwords to give you an idea so that you know how to proceed. But do not read from your resume, and make sure that you're positioned and that you're poised, because that comes through over the phone.
Personality as well, Ladrine. People sometimes are very reserved.
Yes.
Yeah.
So their personality needs to come out either through the intonation of their voice, inflection of their voice. It needs to show.
But make sure that you are yourself. Make sure you are yourself, but definitely personality. Like, you don't have to be cardboard box. Like, be yourself. Be your natural self. Well, some people's self, I don't know. No, I'm playing. But, like, be genuine, because you got to understand, the same people that you're dealing with, it'll be different levels, and it may not be someone that you deal with every day, but you don't want a representative to interview for you, and then you come in, and it's a different story. Not only from the side of them, but for you. You are trying to interview them as well. So it's not like every job that you go on, you might not want to be a part of them. So just as they are interviewing you, you are interviewing them as well. So that's very important.
I did have something I wanted to add.
Sure.
You said something that reminded me that since I pretty much work with directors and above, when I have individuals who are up for another position, one of the things that I ask them to create is a document of what they would do their first 90 days.
I was going to say 120.
Yeah.
Yep.
And based off of that, and obviously, because remember, we told them they needed to research what's going on with the company. And so you put a little footnote and say that this is an external view, and that it can be flexible, based on any internal information, but this is an external view. But I have candidates write up a plan of what that they will follow, the conversations they will have, the things that they review, the opportunities that they see within the first 90 days, and have it in written document form, and have it for each member that they're interviewing in front of. It is very impressive to do that, particularly if you have a very meaty document based on your research.
Yeah,
it will
absolutely
set you out from the other candidates.
Absolutely, and it's very important to make sure.
And I will also add too that interviewers know when the interviewee is bluffing, and or they don't know their stuff, right? And I have gone to interviews in corporate where you actually had to go through a case study right there in person. Mm-hmm. And so they can easily screen you out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. most definitely. So you being honest is the best way to go through. And you don't know something, say you don't know something. You don't know who was in the next interview who didn't know anything, but you should never be comparing yourself against the next person. It's against the criteria. So make sure that, and even if it's something that you don't have that they ask for, you tell them something else that you do have that can be the icing on the cake that they may not have even thought about. So thank you all, ladies. Those were some very, very good tips. So now we're going to transition to the last topic before we begin to take the questions. And Jennifer, this is your area. This is your mantra. This is your everything.
Starter, right?
So by all means, please take it away.
Thank you. I am about igniting the fire in my client. A lot of times when people come to me, their lack of confidence is there. And so what I work with them on is helping them to identify exactly what their skill sets are. So we'll do a skill set inventory, and then we'll also talk through what their work journey is and if there's any personal things that are impeding their confidence. But there's a success model that I have, and the success model is a formula, and it's 3 C's or C cubed plus A equals success. So the first thing is about competency, the first C, and that is about increasing your knowledge base. And Ladrine, you touched on it, volunteer opportunities to expand your knowledge base. So keep a growth mindset and learn what you need to learn. The second thing, C, is credibility, and that is about how are you showing up. What is your reputation? What is your brand? And part of building your knowledge base is also building your credibility. Mm-hmm. The other C is confidence. When you have the other two, and like my mom used to say, once you learn that knowledge, nobody can take that away from you. Once you get that education, no one can take that away from you. And so as you build your technical knowledge, your competency, and your personal and professional brand, you can step out there boldly with confidence. And then the A is about attitude. Having a positive attitude will go a long way. There have been many times, even today, I always keep a growth mindset. Things I do know, I know, right? Things I don't know, I'm self-aware that I don't know. And I'm humble enough to say, I need help. Will you help me in this area? And so those are the pieces where I talk about igniting your fire with the client. The other piece too, I tell them the value of having a mentor and having a sponsor. Those are two different things. A mentor is someone who's going to teach you, they're going to work with you, they're going to be your sounding board. I'm not saying that they're not mutually inclusive, the mentor as well as the sponsor, but that sponsor is going to be one who helps you with your career. Yes. They will help you because your credibility and your reputation is strong. They will be that person that will be your face to go out there, and when opportunities present themselves, they're saying your name without you even being in the room. So that is part of my igniting your fire. And I go through this formula along with other techniques in my book, Overcoming Personal Challenges to Achieve Professional Success. I started off as a clerk typist during the day, janitor at night, and went to school at night. And what has been part of my success is that I volunteered a lot of long nights, and the fact that I actually got mentors, people who didn't look like me, people who were older than me, people who were outside the organization, and I looked for people who sat in positions of where I aspired to be. And that is important. And don't be shy to sit down and ask for informational interviews, even through the job application process. Not that you're trying to have one leg up, but you couch it in a way, or position the conversation in a way of saying, hey, I saw this position, unsure if I want to apply for it, looks like something I may be interested in, would love to learn a little bit more about the position. If I could sit with you to learn, get an informational interview. I know I packed a lot in that little bit of time, but those have been some great ingredients to help me throughout my career.
Awesome. And we have a question. I'll piggyback on that. But Neek, and hey Neek has a question. Should one still apply for a job if they don't meet the exact qualifications, i.e. different education? So I'll speak on it from a federal government perspective, which is so different from private sector. For federal government, there is a list and there is information in a vacancy announcement that the heading is qualifications. So the qualification, and I'm not even talking about the area consideration right now, but the qualification. The qualification is broken down into various components. At the first beginning of it, it tells you the basic quals. So it'll be any education requirement or any specialized experience requirement. No, any specialized experience requirement. And what that means is that if it is a positive education, if it says that education is required, and don't get it mixed up with education in lieu of. There are some jobs where it's in lieu of, you can combine your education and experience, but there are some jobs that are very specific that you must have this education. I don't care if it's at a GS 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 15. If it is a requirement by the OPM standards, then you must meet that education. However,
positive education requirement.
Yes, some people get confused in terms of not applying for jobs that do not have a positive education. So, for example, one of the very popular positions is a program analyst or a management analyst. And it falls into a categorical administrative series. And there are no educational requirements for that area. What that means is you can have a doctor, a nurse, you can have an IT person, you can have someone with a myriad of different backgrounds and experiences that could probably qualify for 301. And then there's, and I don't want to get into numbers, that's the number that represents the 300 categories, but I say that in answering your question. If there is an educational requirement that is written in there, then you should not apply to it because you're going to be disqualified. If it is education in lieu of, or if it's a different series that you're trying to transfer into, but that new series does not have an educational requirement, like in terms of that, so far, yes. But then you go through the remaining components of it, of the qualifications, and then you go to the specialized experience and any other special requirements that they have for that vacancy announcement. So it depends on how the vacancy announcement reads, how you address it. Do one of you all want to address it from the private sector?
You want to take it, Jennifer, or I can take it?
You can take it, and I'll just add a point, because you probably covered what I'm about to say, but go ahead.
From a corporate standpoint, it needs to be relevant to the position. It just can't be any degree in any particular discipline, but the discipline needs to be relevant, compatible, and transferable in terms of the skill set that you learn from that particular discipline and the discipline that is being required. So I encourage individuals to apply for jobs if they don't necessarily have the discipline, but they have the education. But it needs to be compatible, it needs to be relevant and transferable. And at that time, I expect you to explain in your cover letter how you view that transition from where you are with the education you have with the job that you're applying for. So in some instances, you can get across the goal line with relevant education that's not specific to what the job posting requires. But it has to be compatible and it has to be relevant to the position that you're applying for, even though it wasn't that discipline that they asked for specifically. So should you? Yes, you should, if you can look at the job posting and determine how that discipline is relevant and compatible in terms of the job that you're applying for.
So real quick, I don't know if you can read this, but I had up here transferable skills, Dr. Karen.
Great.
Because as you accelerate in your career, right, and Ladrine, you probably witnessed this, that as you move around, particularly in executive positions, they are looking at your leadership qualifications, right? And not so much the technical. Sometimes it reverse. Well, they hire a technical person instead of a leader. But I know I've been in positions where, because I had transferable skills as a program manager, they placed me in various leadership jobs. Mm-hmm. And I grew and learned, but they hired me for a particular niche, which was my leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So, absolutely. Of course, The conversation is always so good, and the time goes so fast, right?
I know. I'm like,
So we are actually come to the end of our show, but thank you, ladies, so much. This has been a very phenomenal conversation, and for me, I love HR. So when I started talking to you all, and we started talking HR, I'm like, that's my lane. So, you all on the Let's Do It, on the other side of it, like, look out for something. We're trying to figure out just what and how to present this, but HR is in my blood, and we have an opportunity to do something together. So I want to give a shout out to everybody who have joined us, and y'all know I'm normally really good with collecting the names, but it was HR, so I was all into it. But I did catch Lanice, Nick, Dee Dee, of course. Thank you, Dee Dee. Dee Dee tagged everybody. Tina, hey Tina Hunter. Also Miss Peggy and a couple others. Do you all want to quickly shout out some of the people who were on your feed? Because I can't see your friends. Okay, well,
I
we'll
went straight into the group.
Okay.
I went straight into
Okay.
Yeah, I can't see.
Okay, no problem at all. So again, thank you all for tuning in. Make sure that you all follow us on Facebook, on Instagram. We're trying to get the group to be like the main focus for it instead of like off of my page. So make sure that you follow us. We have some phenomenal shows that are coming up. Y'all can't see. The studio looks regular to y'all, but they have upgraded. So when I talk about the studio audience, oh, it's going to be a studio audience. So we'll talk about that later. We have a lot of phenomenal guests who are upcoming. Next week is none other than Money Making Mondays, where we will have the financial gurus coming in. So once again, thank you so much. Let me know your thoughts. Do y'all want more HR? Do y'all want HR to be a segment of the show, like continuously? Let me know. Drop it in the feed. That's what I do. So
We
thank
can talk
you all
about it
so
all
much.
day
Thank
long.
you, ladies. I appreciate you all from Skyping in. I love the flow and the energy in terms of how it went. So once again, thank you all, and see you all next week.